Now, as you know, pretty much everybody knows at this point, Infinity Edge on Kha'zix is most likely his best DPS item. He has a huge steroid, and you always want the steroid to crit. And for the other two items, I think what you see the most is you see Rapid Fire Cannon and BT. Now, I'm gonna straight up say it, I think BT isn't that great of a Kha'zix item. I think that Edge of Night is much better. The reason for Edge of Night being better is, I mean, obviously I still want him to have sustain, so if I would end up playing a Kha'zix like this, I would probably want Omnivomp Mutants or Thrill of the Hunt or Celestial Blessing or Second Wind, you know, just any sort of healing from an augment. And I feel like this Kha'zix will end up performing much better than the BT Kha'zix because of the aggro drop, allowing him to be able to properly get rid of everybody in the backline. The Edge of Night will also remove the anti-heal that he's likely going to be receiving from the Sunfire or whatever, and BT doesn't really help that much once he has the anti-heal on him, and his base HP isn't that high, so the shield for BT isn't also, unless you play cybernetics, the shield for BT isn't that great. So for most cases I would recommend that you end up running Edge of Night instead of a BT and just use the aggro drop and play it more offensive. Now the reason for the RFC is obviously that, you know, his ultimate can't miss. That's really nice. And as also Kha'zix is a very, very slow champion. He tends to, if he ends up, you know, ulting from one side to the other map, and then he's like very, very slow in walking towards his next opponent. The good thing about RFC is that he will end up having to walk one hex less, or he can do a smarter pathing to immediately get back into the fight and to reduce the overall downtime. So that's pretty useful. But I think there's one more item I want you to consider in the future regarding the Kha'zix itemization, and that's Hurricane, especially if you're playing a solo Kha'zix. And this is the itemization that I prefer on Kha'zix the most. Now, I do kind of tend to combine this with Socialite and not Mutants. So for this scenario, we will be playing a Seraphine, a Senna, and a Gnar. And then, you know, Kha'zix is going to receive the Socialite Hex. And this is going to give him sustain, and this is pretty nice. Now, why is the Hurricane good on Kha'zix? Well, you might think, well, does it have to do with his ultimate? And, you know, his Hurricane will end up dealing a lot of damage because of an interaction with Hurricane, but this is not the case, no. If Kha'zix ults, then, you know, the Hurricane will just be a part of the AD. But it's not about this. It has to do with the initial example of playing more assassins, because what Hurricane ends up doing is this Kha'zix, who's going to be dealing a considerable amount of damage with Infinity Edge of Night and Hurricane, he will keep the Hurricane bolts towards the backline. And the Hurricane sort of like acts as a semi-assassin, meaning if he's attacking this Caitlyn, then the Hurricane bolts will end up hitting the Misfortune. Now, if the Kha'zix is full mana and he starts ulting, he will kill the Caitlyn, and at this point, you know, this Misfortune probably received a total of at least 5 Hurricane Bulls, 4 from the attacks until Kha'zix was full mana, and then the 5th from the ultimate itself. This puts Misfortune extremely low, and this is going to cause a scenario where if the opponent, I'm just gonna add a few more backliners for the opponent, this is going to cause a situation where Kha'zix, because of his Hurricane, will end up preparing his next ultimate target. And this way you can sort of like create a situation where Kha'zix will do very short jumps within the backlines, because he will always jump towards the target that he's setting himself up with the Hurricane beforehand. This doesn't always work perfectly, but I do find, especially with Socialite Kha'zix, that this worked pretty well for me, and I would suggest that you can try it out and see it for yourself if you think that this makes Kha'zix perform a lot better than with the usual item build of giving him stuff like BT or RFC. But yeah, I just wanted to share this idea with you, and see you guys the next time.